Mitzvah Shabbos Parshas Chukas Bolak. Today's daf is daf Mem Vav Amud Aleph. We'll begin from the Mishnah daf Mem Hey Amud Beis. The Mishnah quickly says, "Hamaitzi es ishte." If somebody divorces his wife, mishum shem ra. There are stories abounding about her promiscuous ways. Lo yachzer. Once he divorces her, he cannot take her back. Why can't he take her back? In the Gemara, we'll have two opinions why he can't take her back. And one is because of kilkula. Kilkula means that it turns out to be, for example, the rumors were false. And meanwhile, she married someone else. He will go and say that had I known that it was false, I never would have given you a get. So the entire get was based on erroneous information, and therefore the get is bottled. The get has been canceled. And now that she is married, you were a married woman, and you married a second person, the children of mamzerim. That's what we are worried about. So we tell him up front that you'll never take her back again. So he will do his homework and see whether it's true or not true. And if he still proceeded, that means he didn't really love her in the first place. The other explanation is because of pritzes. The fact that these rumors are bound, that there must be some truth to it, and must be she's leading a promiscuous life or promiscuous behavior, and therefore we penalize her that she can never go back to her husband. Okay, these are the two views in the Gemara. So now the Mishnah continues. Same thing in Mishum Neder. If she was a woman who every time she got angry, she had a habit of making the Durham, Lo yachzir, again, he cannot take her back, because otherwise he would say, oh, if I would have known that this neder could have been canceled, I never would have divorced her. So therefore, and then he would ruin her life forever if she got me remarried. So we tell him up front, you can never take her back again, so make sure that this is fine. So do your homework, whatever it is you have to do. So now, Rabbi Yehuda, that's a Tanakama. Rabbi Yehuda says, I believe the only reason is because of a knas, because she made the Dorim and it's a life of princess and so on. Just stop making the Dorim. So Rabbi Yehuda says, Kol neder sheyada b'ram, any neder that is in public arena, lo yachzir, then since it's embarrassing, we penalize her and you can never get back. Lo yada b'ram, if people were not aware of it, then you can be made for the neder, and then yachzir. No, if you're the berabim, you cannot. She made another berabim. You can never cancel. You can never retract it. So therefore, we tell him up front that he. So why? So if you can never cancel it, why are we worried? What are we worried about? We're worried about not worried at all. It's a knas. We penalize her that we don't want people to be in the habit of making the dar. And generally, women made the dar far more often than men did. They got angry. They made a neder. So if she made a neder berabim, that in itself is an act of pritzes, because everybody knows that she made a neder, and therefore it's a knas. He cannot take her back. But if it was not done berabim, so it could be annulled. So therefore, we did not penalize her. That's Rabbi Yehuda. So he believes the only reason is because of pritzes. Abmeir says no. He says the reason is because of kilkul. So he says as follows. Kol neder shetzarech hakikis chacham, any neder that the husband could not annul. We learned that two kinds of neder the husband can annul. Either it adversely affects her, or adversely it affects their relationship. Otherwise, he has no right to the neder. So any neder that he had no right to, but only a chacham could have canceled it, then lo yachzir. Then we tell him that you cannot take it back. Because otherwise he'll say later on, oh, if I would have known that I could have gone to chacham and canceled the neder, I never would have given a get and ruined the rest of her life. So he learns the logic is kilkul. If he, the husband himself, could have known the neder, then you should have annulled it. Don't say, oh, if I would have known what. Everybody knows, every husband knows their rights, and he could have known the neder, or he could have found out. And therefore, we're not worried that in the future you're going to come along and make that story. Is yachzeh, then he can take her back. Omar Abulazar has another opinion. He says, loy osru zeh. According to Abulazar, we banned both. Whether it's only a chacham who could be materit, whether it's the husband, in both cases, he can never take her back. But why is it that if a chacham can break the neder, we say that you cannot take her back? Because a gzeira, where he can break the neder. In other words, according to Rabbi Lazar, that the husband can argue, I didn't know that I can annul the neder. Had I known, I would have never given her a get in the first place. So we're worried. So we said that you should know you cannot take her back. Do your homework. But on the other hand, Rabbi Elazar holds, the Gemara explain later, Chacham, we believe that a husband would not say, "Oh, if I would have known, I would have sent her to a bezdin to annul her get." If everybody can mute themselves, we're not worried that because husbands generally did not send their wives to a bezdin because it's humiliating and they wouldn't have done that. So you can't say, "Oh, if I would have known, I would have sent her to the bezdin," because you wouldn't. But nevertheless, we don't let you take it back because all gittin should be the same. Then the Mishnah continues. There's a story with Sidon regarding a man. He said to his wife, I ban all the fruits in the world. I think Gemara will explain. If I don't divorce you, but he did divorce her. In other words, he made a net that if I don't divorce you, this doesn't happen, and he divorced her. The Chacham allowed her to take it back. They allowed her to take it back. Why did they allow her to take it back? Because maybe you can say the same thing. If I would have known that I could be mata neder, because the din is that if a person makes a neder and because of the vow he has to divorce his wife, he before he divorces his wife, the halacha is we tell the husband we are annulling a neder, and the reason is if we don't annul the neder, it looks like a coerced divorce, and we will learn later that you cannot give a coerced divorce. You cannot give a forced divorce. And it looks like here that the neder is what forced you to give a divorce. So we tell you, we are mata neder before you give the divorce. So therefore, what's the husband going to say? Had I known, we actually were mata neder, so there's no issue. That's how some explain this Mishnah. And then the Mishnah concludes that tikkun ha'olam. We're not sure exactly what the Mishnah is referring to when he uses the words tikkun ha'olam. Now the Gemara explains what we just said in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yosef, the son of Yuma, said Nachman. He has to tell her at the time of the get. He has to tell her the reason. That the reason why I'm divorcing you is because of these rumors. Or because of the neder. Why does he have to tell her that? So what he holds. What are we worried about, Mishnah? We're worried about Shimchu Kula. We're worried that he'll come along later on and say, "Oh, if I would have known, I never would have divorced you in the first place." That's what the whole Mishnah is worried about. When are we worried? You can say that only if he made it very clear to us at the time of the get why he's giving me the get. According to so only if he said those words, "I'm divorcing you because X, Y, Z," then must be calculated. Then he can later on rely on that and say, "Look, it turned out to be the whole thing was a fabrication." And the get shouldn't be a get. But if he didn't say at the time of the get, then he can't come along later and say, "Oh, the reason why I gave you get is because of this reason, and now it turns out to be it's not true. I want the get to unravel." It doesn't work that way. Now, why, if he said it is good enough? Big machlek is Rishonim. According to Rashi, this is treated like a tanai. It's mamish like a tanai. And even though you didn't actually use the words al manas, whatever, it's like you made it conditional, and therefore. It's such a strong gili milsa, such a strong obvious reason why he did it, because people don't willy-nilly divorce. It must be a good reason. If you mention that, obviously, that is the reason. According to Taisus says there's no way you can cancel the get because he didn't verbally say almanas. I'm making it on condition. But what we are worried about is you're going to run around and spread stories that the get is not a real get because of turned out to be that these stories were false. And it's going to ruin the reputation and tarnish the reputation of the kids and the family. And that's what we're worried about. Moitzi las. Okay.
By saying that, by telling her why he's divorcing you, how does that help? You can always say, I didn't know.
According to Taisus, later on, he'll run around and tell everybody, see, the only reason why I divorced her is because I heard that she was whatever, and turned out to be it's not true, so the get is now the get. Now, even though halachically he's wrong, but it's enough for people to wag their tongues and ruin her life. And nobody wants to get involved with
Masira, no?
That's Taisus. According to there were 8. Of course, he gave her a proper get. According to he did give her a get, but he said if he said at the time the reason why I'm giving you a get is X, Y, Z, and then later on it turned out to be that's not true. Even though it's too late, he can't undo the get, but he'll run around saying the get is not valid, ruin their life. That's Taisus and most Rishonim. But Rashi learns that he actually can cancel the get. Because it's like a Tanai, because it's a very strong Gili Milsa. It's a strong revelation. The only reason why he did this is for this reason. That's one version. Now is another version. It's not, in other words, it's not conditional that this whole problem is only if he actually said the reason why I'm giving the get is because you make vows or because of these stories. But he should say, You should say it's a good idea to say it that this is the reason because of Shemra or because Neder. In other words, why? Somebody he holds time in mind. The whole reason is we don't want women to go around and to continuously, make the darim or be promiscuous. So we penalize her that she can never go back to the husband. But it's a good idea to tell her why, so she should know in the future to reform, to improve, and other women also should behave. But if he didn't say it, nothing changes. You cannot take her back. Not like the first version. If he didn't say it, then he could take her back because he cannot unravel the get. We're saying Tanya Kalisha Kamba, but Tandish Rabbi. Look like both the shapes. Tanya Kalisha Kamba. We look at the first lashon. Why is it that we say that a person who divorces his wife because of shemra, lo yachla should never take her back? Umashum neder, because a neder lo yachla should not take her back. We're worried. She might get married to somebody else. The nim chutvari badoin turned out to be the whole thing is above Maisa. The yomer, and it'll say if everybody can mute themselves, please. The yomer,
Can you
say ilu hayisi yodeya. If I would have known Shekain who, if I would know that it's not true, I feel he might nicely may a money. They can give me $10,000, 100 manas. Loi hayisi megash. I never would have divorced her. Which means then, v'nimtze get bottle b'nei mamzerim. Now this sounds like Rashi. This sounds exactly like Rashi. V'nimtze get bottle b'nei mamzerim. That he would actually cancel the get, and it comes out she was a married woman when she married that second person. Taisa learns it looks like the get is bottled. People will say the get is bottled and it's shul mamzerim, even though it's not true halachically. Leficha, therefore, we tell the husband, have a day you should know. If that's the reason, is that the ground for your divorce? You can never take her back. And therefore, do all your homework right now. And if you don't exhaust the, all the possible avenues, you don't do your homework properly, then that means you don't really want her. And you can't undo the get. Interesting, the Rambam writes. So we're saying that we find out later that the stories are not true. The Badoin. The Rambam writes, what happens if she does tshuva? And the husband says, oh, if I would have known that she would do tshuva, that she would change and reform in behavior, I never would have divorced her. And everyone talks about where the Rambam gets it from, because that's a whole different way we're learning here. It turned out all along it was not true. And why does the Rambam change from what the Gemara says? Anyway, another time. Tanya.
Ramato, I mean, just to understand, he's gone and divorced her, right? So that there's been a complete mesa. She's gone and been divorced. She's now gone and remarried. Yeah. And what are we saying? Are we saying that he's got the koyach to undermine his get because he was under a misconception?
That's called a mekach. So it depends. Rashi tells who you're asking according.
I'm just trying to understand that.
According to Taisus, he can't legally undermine, but he can spread. He can all kinds of allegations that enough that people will want to stay away from her family. Maybe they're mamzedim. Not everyone is not Talmud Chacham, and not everyone is like you who can figure that out. And they'll say, maybe the get taka is possible. We don't want to get married to the kids. That's Taisus. Sure. Rashi learns that this is the same thing as a normal tanai. Every time you give a get, you make a tanai. She can get married to somebody else. If she did not fulfill the tanai, for example, he said you cannot drink wine for a whole year. And that he could do because he gives a limited time. And if she drank wine at 6 months after she got married, the get is bottled, and if she has kids in mamzerim, yes. That's how Rashi learns, that he can actually do that. Tanya Klisha Basar. However, we learned another brisa to support the second view, which is the lishna basa, and that is it's because a penalty for the woman for that kind of behavior. Why is it we say if you divorce your wife because of a bad name? Don't take her back. Because a neder don't take her back. We don't want them to behave this way. There should be prutzes when it comes to be promiscuous and to vows. Therefore, we say, and my law tell her, you should tell her, you should know, you should tell her that, so she should do tshuva and reform in the future. And the Rambam seems to put together both reasons, because the idea of telling her here is, that's why we penalize you and change your ways, which is like tshuva. So the Rambam seems to take both answers in the Gemara into account. That's why he says that the husband says, if you would have done tshuva, and so on. Okay, Next Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda says, "Kol neder sheyod b'rabim." Any neder you make in public, you cannot in any way annul. We actually had a machlekes. If if you make a neder b'rabim, if you could annul or not. Then we had also al das rabim as well. That if you make it, I'm making on behalf, that the whole world has to agree. And then we said the only exception is if it's for a mitzvah, you could undo it. So Rabbi Yehuda says, "Kol neder sheyod." If everybody knows about it, then it's shameful. Because he holds the idea is not because of kilkul, but because of pritzes. If nobody knows about it, then there's no pritzes there, so therefore you can take it back. Because there's nothing there's no reason to have a penalty. My time, where does Rabbi Yehuda learn this from? The Chsiv, it says in Pasuk, how does he know that a neder made by Rabbim you cannot cancel? He says, when Yeshua came into Yisrael and they were about to destroy, they had a mitzvah, it's a chaya called neshama, they couldn't let anyone live in Eretz Yisrael, the 7 nations they had to destroy. And the Givonim, they masqueraded as being some foreign country or foreign people, and they came to Yeshua and they were accepted. And then when they were discovered that to be locals, it says, well, he could be Israel. The Eden couldn't, their hands were tied. They couldn't have fulfilled the mitzvah. Why? Because the leaders of the Eidah swore to them. They swore to them. Some poskim want to say from here the right, they can actually have a shliach to make a shua. Because they didn't make the shua, and the Eidah made the shua. And yet they were bound by it as if they were their shliach. Others want to say no proof from at all. On the contrary, you cannot have a shliach making shavuos for you. But here it's different because in the Eidah means that they behave like a nasi who represents Klal Yisrael, which is very different than a shliach who's just working for you. Says the Gemara. So Rabbi Yehuda clearly said, what do you see from there? They couldn't cancel the shua. Why not? Because the Givonim made the shua in public. That's it. Once you make a shua in public, you can't cancel. That's how Rabbi Yehuda learns. Says the Gemara. Rabbanan. Possum over there, Rabbanu say you could cancel it. They say mi chol shvur like clown. So ask a better question. That's a shvur. The whole thing was under the misapprehension that they were foreigners when in fact they were locals. That's not a shvur. Even the they said we come from a distant land and it didn't. There's no shvur at all. So why Taka didn't the Yidden kill them with everybody else? But it would have been a chil Hashem. It would have been a chil Hashem because everybody knew that they made the shvur, they were accepted by the Eden, and then tomorrow they get killed. What a chil Hashem it would be. That's the only reason why. Nothing to do with that. The obvious question is Rabbi Yehuda. How can Rabbi Yehuda say, "Oh, this is a real shvur," when the whole thing was built on false premises? Rabbi Yehuda felt that if the halacha is you could cancel the shvur, then it wouldn't be chil Hashem because you can tell the world they made a shvur and legally you're allowed to cancel even though it's not public, and we cancel it. But if the halach is you cannot cancel a shvur b'rabim, then it's a chil Hashem if they would have done it. That's how Rabbi Yehuda learns it. Okay, everyone asked the question: you can't make a shvur against the Torah. If the Torah said leisa chaya kol neshama, you're not let them live, then obviously the shvur is meaningless. How can you make a shvur? You're not going to kill somebody who deserves to be killed. Leisa chaya kol neshama. So they say that if somebody was prepared to make peace, or somebody was prepared not to worship Avodah Zarah, they actually could let them live. Leisa chaya kol neshama, those who didn't want to sue for peace, or those who did not accept the Eibush, who were still idol worshippers. Taking about further, how many people do you have to make a vow before that you call this a public? Nachman says Gimel, 3 people. How do you get 3 people? Because generally when you're known the Dorim, you need a peasant. So therefore you have 3 people when it comes to a rabbin. Rabbi Yitzchak says a son. Rabbi Yitzchak says 10. Now, where do you get 3 and 10? I'm not going to Gimel because it says by Azov, Yomim is 2, and Rabbim, it says Yomim, Rabbim, so if a woman sees 2 consecutive days is Yomim. And then, you have to, and Rabbim is, she says Yomim Rabbim, 3 days, then you have to have 7 clean days. So Rabbim means 3. What does it have to do with the neder in public? Because I just told you, you annul your bezin, so therefore 3 to bezin. Rabbi Yitzchak says 10, the Siv Eidah. It says in the passage, the Siyeha Eidah. And we know from the Meraglim that an Eidah congregation is 10 people because Hashem said to Moshe, Ad Mosai Leider Azois, how much longer do you have to put up with this terrible congregation? And Yeshua and Kalev were not part of it. That left 10 behind. And why Rab Nachman didn't agree with that is it doesn't say le'eda, it says nesiyei ha'eda. It doesn't say that 10 people were there. It just says the nesiyim of the eda. But how many were there? Therefore, he learns 3. Okay, the Mishnah continues. What's the pshat in Rabbi Lozer? Rabbi Lozer says that the only reason why you cannot take back your wife, if those nedarim that only a bezin can cancel, is because you cannot take back your wife on those nedarim that you could cancel because you could have said, had I known. So what's going on here? Tanya Rabbi Lozer says, the only reason why we banned if you need a chacham to cancel it is because in the case where you don't need a chacham to cancel it, only you can cancel it. I argue with Rameir. Rameir says every single person knows that he can cancel it, so he cannot come back later and say, oh, had I known. And therefore, if the husband could have canceled it, then he could take her back. We're not worried that he will ruin her life because there's nothing he can say. But Rabbi Lezer says, no, I hold that people just didn't know their rights. And therefore, a husband could have a right to say, oh, had I known that I could have known her, I never would have divorced her. On the other hand, he argues that Meir says, but if you go to a chacham, he could have said, I didn't know that a chacham can cancel the neder. Had I known, I never would have divorced her. But Rabbi Lezer says that you cannot say that because no man would send their wife to be humiliated in front of a court. If we learned before, you could send a shliach. The woman could have sent a shliach on behalf to go to the court. So they would learn then. It's not the fact that she presents herself in the court. It's the fact that the court has to discuss the vows that she made. The Mike goes to argument. Rameh has no problem with the woman going to a bezin. And Rabbi Lozer saw about ain't adam reiches bazi bezin. Rabbi Lozer holds good men did not say their wives to bezin. What does the story come in? We're talking about the women, suddenly here talking about a man. What's going on here? Says he went a few words are missing. This is how you should learn. Ahmed when he went is talking about Kisha nodded he when she made the vow. Aval nodded he, but if he made the vow, Yachzer should go back. If he made the vow, he can take her back, no problem. We're not worried at all. I'm going to be the mice and I'm a titan. There's a story. The man said to his wife, I'll ask her everything. I don't divorce you. Divorced her. And the allowed him to take her back. We are not worried that he can say, oh, if I would have known, I wouldn't have done this and this. We're not worried about that at all. As I explained to you before, why we're not worried? Because we make him be mataneder before he actually gives the get. Because otherwise it looks like a coerced divorce, and the coerced divorce is a problem. And we'll have the pecheste all about that. It says in Mishnah, the last 3 words of the Mishnah is Netikin Olam. This is because we're trying to, fix up the world. This is Tikkun Olam. So first thing I said, my koinim. What do you mean I aser? Like a carbon. What's he asering? He says to his wife, I'm going to aser all the fruits of the world upon myself if I don't divorce you. He permitted him to bring him back. Pshit says the Gemara, he permitted to take his wife back. So, why not? Why shouldn't he take his wife back? So, I would have thought, Ligzer, because he made a neder, and now he basically is fulfilling his neder that he divorced her. That's a bad thing. What do you mean? If you make a neder and you fulfill your neder, why is it a bad thing? What we learned in Gemara Nedarim. From Rab Nosson, the name of Rab Nosson, I would have thought that we should also, just like we penalize her for making the Nedarim, we should stop men also from making the Nedarim. And therefore, we should penalize him that he cannot take her back. And why is that? Rab Nosson said, I know that if somebody makes a neder, it's not a good thing. It's as if you built a bum at a time when you're not allowed to build any more your little altars in your backyard. And if you made a neder, it's like you built an altar. And I'm a kind if you fill your neder without being mata neder, is ki'ilu hikrim oleha carbon, as if you brought a carbon in the bummer, which is mamash and avera. And therefore, maybe we should tell the husband, you cannot take it back, because we don't like the idea that he made a neder, he's going to divorce her, and then he actually did. Kamashulan, that because it's so rare that men should make nedarim, that we are not going to stop.
Didn't we have a club we learned in Nedarim that you can't make a neder on somebody else? Like, I can't make a neder that you can't drink water because
I'm making a neder about myself, and I'm
right,
going to give you. I'm making a neder that I'm going to give you a get. It's me.
Right, but it's impacting on the wife. She's going to become a Grushan.
Kids, it's totally my decision. Before a ben gershim, the husband decides to give a get or not to give a get, totally unilaterally. So therefore, it's totally completely in his control. So you can make a neder about a get. Okay. Next, bitnei tikkun ha'olam. where does the word tikkun olam fit into our Mishnah? My tikkun olam. What's tikkun olam? What tikkun olam is there? Amar Rav Sheshes, Areisha. When we said over there that we don't want him to take her back, that is tikkun olam. Either because of the reason we gave kilkul, we don't want him to go around saying, "Oh, if I would have known," or because we don't want the women to be prutzes. However, Ravina says, "La'olam ha'sefer." There's the last few words of the Mishnah, so it's really connected to the very end of the Mishnah. And this is what he's saying. In the case of the man, there's no real benefit to say to him, you cannot take her back. Because it's rare that men would make the darim, and therefore we are not worried. Mishnah.
Just before you go on, when Rav Nachman said that 3 is Rabbim, according to him, does that mean that it can be a minion too? So could you rely on that?
A minimum, what he was saying is that if you make a neder, Rabbi Yehuda said you make a neder in public, you can never cancel it. It's a minimum of 3 people there. If there's more, for sure, it's a Rabbim. But even 3, according to the other opinion, it has to be a minimum of 10 people before we say, oh, let's consider public, and you cannot cancel that kind of a neder.
Right, so he doesn't carry it across to being a minion of 3.
No.
Yeah.
No one says a minion. Mm-hmm. We had a discussion about brachas if 9 people with an oren or 9 people, you know what the case is there about a kid, whether it's a minion.
Or a for Torah and so on.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Mishnah, next Mishnah. Okay, again talking about misapprehensions of tikkun olam. Hamoitzi es ishte mishum islanders. If somebody divorces his wife because she was an islandess. An islandess is a woman who cannot fall pregnant. She has masculine signs, and the word islandess is rooted in the word ayil, a ram, a male ram. So she was an islandess, so he divorced her. And now it's clear from this Mishnah here, the way Rashi learns, that an islandess needs a divorce. Remember, we had in Gemara Yavamas, it's like a mekach tos. We had regarding a Yavama, whether there's a sister, what's the problem? We said like a mekach, like she was never married in the first place, because he thought she was a woman who's capable of bearing children. Turned out to be that she's not capable at all. She's not an akara, she's an islandess. She never was capable at all. She didn't even have the signs. So it's a mekach tos. But here Rashi says, nevertheless, you still need a get. And why do you need a get if the whole thing is mekach tos? Because since when they had a person does not like to have intimate relations, stam wantonly, so he would have had in mind the very first time in that relation that this is l'shem getting married. So therefore, it doesn't matter if the mekach tos or not, and he definitely did be l'shem kedusha. Taisa doesn't like that at all. Taisa said you don't need a get; it's a mekach tos. The Gemara is talking about a woman here that we're not sure. You thought maybe she's an islandess. You weren't sure, so you divorced her. That's why you needed a get. Rabbi Yehuda says, lo yachzeh. Rabbi Yehuda says, you cannot take her back. And why not? Because what happens if tomorrow suddenly she's able to have children? And that's another problem Tosfos had with Rashi. If she's definitely an islandess cannot be cured, can never have children. But a Suffolk islandess, you misread. You thought she was an islandess, she wasn't. Just because a woman didn't have children for many years doesn't mean she's an islandess. You can have children later on. So, but Rabbi Yehuda says it turned out to be that she got married to somebody else and she had children. So he will say, oh, the only reason why I divorced her is because she's an islandess. Had I known that she is not an islandess, or she can be cured, I never would have divorced her. Rashi actually says, he adds something here, which the Mepharshim tried to understand why. I was sure that she would come back to me if she's cured. Instead, she went and married another man. If I would have known that she would not come back to me if she was cured, I never would have given the get in the first place. We would have tried to do the cure together or something. Anyway, so Rabbi Yehuda here is worried about kilkula, which is the opposite of what he said in the previous Mishnah, which is what we're going to talk about in the Gemara here. And the Chachamim say, yachzeh, no problem. We're not worried about being mekalkal. Says the Gemara, she married somebody else, had children, amen. She goes back to her husband and says, look, you divorced me because on the grounds that I was an islandess. And therefore, even though I needed a get, you definitely didn't have to give me a ksuva. Now, that turned out to be I wasn't an islandess, I want my ksuva. Ahmed Abiyudah said, tell this woman, sometimes it's better to be quiet. Then you're opening a Pandora's box. Because if you're claiming that the whole get was a mistake and therefore you should be tied to ksuva, then the get would unravel. According to your argument, then there's no get because he only divorced you because you were an islandess. If you're saying that you're not an islandess, you never were, and you want your ksuva, then there's no get. And you'll have all kinds of problems, so keep quiet. Says the Gemara, but we don't understand how this mission is compatible with the previous mission. Remember, it comes out that Rabbi Yehuda chayish l'kakula. Rabbi Yehuda is worried about kakula, and Rabbanan l'chayish l'kakula. Rabbanan is not worried about kakula, right? Because Rabbi Yehuda said over here about an islandess, we tell him you can never take her back, because otherwise he'll walk around saying, "Oh, if I would have known that she can have children, I never would have divorced her." And the Rabbanan not worried. Now the question is, we just learned before, just the opposite. That now we learned how much is if you divorce your wife because of a bad name. Lo Yachid Tanakama said, which is the Rabbanon, don't take her back. You cannot take her back because otherwise we'll go around and saying and being mekalkel. Oh, had I known. And Rabbi Yehuda says, Kol neder, I'm not worried about kilkul, but if it's neder sheyoda barabba neder in public, you cannot cancel. So then it's a princess lo yachzed. Then you cannot a penalty, cannot take it back. Which lo barabba yachzed. Alma rabbanon chayshul kikula. Rabbi Yehuda not worried about kilkul. He says over there that if it was a neder not done in public, he can divorce her. We're not worried. He can always take it back. We're not worried that he's going to say, "Oh, had I known that she would have canceled his loan, I would have taken it back." We're not worried. And yet in this mission here by Alan, so he's exactly the opposite. He said he can never take her back again, so he shouldn't go around saying, had I known that she can have children, I never would have divorced her. What's going on here? Shmuel says, you're right. Eifuch, swap the names around. In our mission here, between Rabbi Yehuda and Chachamim. Says the Gemara, it can't be swapping the names around. Look at the end of the Mishnah. Well, Midiktani say for the end of the Mishnah tells the story. She married somebody else. She had children from that person. The he asks so she's demanding a ksuva. Rabbi Yehuda said, tell her that shtikusech is sometimes better to be quiet, and Yafav Debura better than being quiet, better than saying something. That what? That if you're gonna, that it's as if to say. That the husband can go around say, if you're going to open up and ask for ksuba, the husband can turn around and say, "Oh, had I known that you and Eilis, I never would have divorced you." So we see Rabbi Yehuda is the one who's worried about kilkum. What's going on here? Abaye Omar. So he said, "Hanami Eifel." It wasn't Rabbi Yehuda the story it happened with. It happened with Chachamim. That's one answer. However, Abaye says. Don't swap the names around. There's a difference between the case of idleness and the case of Moitzi Shemra. What is that? Over there, I'll tell you what. Rabbi Yehuda definitely is worried about kilkul. And therefore, because he's worried about kilkul, that is why he says over here in our Mishnah about idleness, he can never take it back. Otherwise, he'll go around and say, "Have known." So how come in the previous Mishnah, when it comes to neder, or he says that only if it's done by Rabbim and not in private? I'll tell you, Rabbi Yehuda, why isn't he worried about Kikula? He's like this: if it's a neder that requires a chacham, he holds like Rabbi Lazar that says that no man is going to send his wife to a chacham, to a rabbi to humiliate herself, and therefore he cannot say, "Oh, had I known that you can go to a chacham, I would have sent her." No, you would not. So we're not worried about that. And if it's the husband who can annul the neder, there's no way he can say, "Oh, had I known that I could annul it, I never would have divorced her." Every husband knows his rights, and you would know that you could annul it. That's why there he says that it's nothing with kilkul. Rabbi Yehuda, Bahu Sabla Kramei, Rabbi Lazar. But so if you need a chacham, he holds like Rabbi Lazar that no man would ever send his wife to the free. He can't say, "Oh, had I known." And b'she'enu tzarich, and if it's enu tzarich, Sabla holds like Rabbi Meir. Omar Rava says Rava. Rabbi Yehuda kasha. You had a question on Rabbi Yehuda and you reconciled it. Oh, but the Rabbanan kasha. What about the rabbis themselves? In our mission, Rabbanan not worried about Alice at all. He's not worried about kilkul, and yet in the previous mission they were. Elam Rava. The Rabbi Yehuda Kasha, Abaye gave a very good answer for Rabbi Yehuda Kiddushim. You answered that in the case of Neder over there in the previous Mishnah, he holds that a husband cannot say, "Oh, had I known about a chacham," because he never would have sent her. And if the husband himself can know, he can't say, "Oh, had I known," because every husband knows. The Rabbanan Kasha. You know why? Man Chachamim, when the Chachamim in this Mishnah say that we're not worried, is Rameir. Why? The Amar says Be'ina Tanai Kafel. When according to Rameir, and this even fits into Rashi, that we're talking about, he made it tonight. I'm giving the get. He expressly says, "I am giving the get because I heard these rumors," or "I'm giving the get because you were fooling around," or "I'm giving the get because you made a neder." Clearly says that. But according to us, making a Tanai is good enough. According to Rab Meir, making a Tanai is only if it's a Tanai kafel. That means if it's true, then the get I'll get. But if it's not true, then the get is not. I have to spell out. But if it's not true, then the get is no longer a get. According to Meir, you have to make a Tanai kafel. You have to give us both sides of the Tanai, and therefore the author of this Mishnah here is Rab Meir. And therefore, but it's talking about the kafel Tanai, and he did not kafel the Tanai. So by idleness is talking about you're supposed to make a Tanai kafel. You didn't make a Tanai kafel. That is why Rab Meir says, well, in this case, he can take her back. We're not worried he'll unravel the get. He can't. He didn't make a Tanai kafel. And in the previous Mishnah, maybe made a Tanai kafel, or it wasn't Rab Meir. Next Mishnah. If somebody sells himself to non-Jews, he's desperate for money. Why else would you sell yourself? And there's Bonav. He took his children along with him, and he sold them all as slaves as one happy family. And the question is there a mitzvah pidyon shvuim now? Because he sold himself. We had the discussion before about an eved, and now we're talking about an ordinary person sold himself and his children to a goy. And obviously we're worried about assimilation. Ein pidyon oiser. So the Mishnah says you don't redeem them. And we'll see in the Gemara, the first and second time we do, even because we say he was desperate for the money, but we still have to help him out. They shouldn't assimilate. But the third time we no longer do. Once the father dies, you will redeem the children. Why? Because, and we'll see maybe even after the fourth or fifth time. And why is that? Because till then the father was able to protect the children. But beyond that, the father cannot protect the children. Says the Gemara. In other words, he'll make sure that it still stay from. Only if he did it 3 times, you no longer help him. There were the people of the region called Me Michse. The Yasve Zuzim, they used to borrow money from Goyim, but they didn't have what to pay. So what did the Goyim take as collateral? The people themselves. Also, the Kogar Belahu, they went ahead and they took them, and they sort of took them as captives, as avodim. Also, the Kambel of Rahuna came to Rahuna and said, "Hey, we need help. Pidyon shvuim." And Pidyon shvuim is a big mitzvah. Like Sama Damreyecha, you have to help out. What should I do? Now the Mishnah says, "You voluntarily sold yourself. You knew when you borrowed the money, you had no way of paying it back, and you knew that this is what they do if you don't pay back. So you did it voluntarily. Why is the mitzvah Pidyon shvuim?" Ain't point and I say, so Baba turned to him and said to Ravasi, sorry, what to Rav Huna? Did you teach us is only if you did it 3 times? That's when we stop. These people, they do it all the time, and therefore we don't have to help them. Who gave as a person the Zav Nafshi? He sold himself the cannibals. He sold himself to cannibals. And also the guy said, I guess he worked there for a while, and afterward they fatten you up, and the rest is history. Also the Kamed Ramami, he came for Ramami, he said, help. He said, Ramami, please redeem me. And why he sold himself to these people is because he what do you call it? They need the money. Ramami said, Tanan, it says in the Mishnah, we will redeem the children after the person dies. Mishum kilkula. Once the person dies, the Mishnah says you can redeem the children because we don't want them to become goyim. While the father's alive, we'll take care of them, but once he's dead, he'll become goyim. The choshkin hacha dikatola. So over here, it's a question of life and death. You're talking about cannibals, so there's a mitzvah to save them. Now the question is whether the mitzvah is to save the father as well, or just the children. And it's not clear over here, but the mitzvah is. And not only that, there's some opinions that even when we say the first 2 times we will say there's only a 3rd time, the Mishnah says ain't poidin. Sorry, there's a question whether you poidin him as well with the children. The Shalshelas HaKabbalah writes that when he sold himself, and the question is where he got this from. He sold himself to these cannibals. These cannibals were not literally cannibals, because why would you sell yourself to cannibals? These were people that they would dissect people for medicine, for medical purposes. They would cut them apart for medical purposes, and Actually, they say there's more about the next part of Reish Lakish. Sorry, the Aruch is about the next part of Reish Lakish. Anyway, so the question is, the Mefarshim have a hard time understanding. If after the father died, we rescue the children so they shouldn't assimilate, and after 3-4 times we no longer rescue the father and the children, but the father did it 3 times, he's proven that he doesn't care about assimilation. So who's going to take care of the children while the father's alive? Why only after the father is dead? That's Ksav Sefer's question. And the Ksav Sefer writes a very interesting thing. His son writes in a tshuva that you find many cases that people are not religious, but they want their children to be religious. So even though he himself will do all kinds of averas, take all kinds of leniencies, he said even amongst the religious people, people when it comes to themselves are very lenient, but when it comes to their own children, they are much stricter. They want to make sure the children don't grow up to be like them. They feel that they're weak. They don't have the strength to withstand or resist whatever the taivas that they have. But for the children, they will work very hard to make sure the children behave themselves. The Gemara continues. You're pasking what? That we should save them because they're about to be killed. If we're worried about assimilation, surely we should worry about annihilation. So at least assimilation is always a chance you can bring them back and maybe make them from. But once they're dead, they're dead. This Yid is a Yisrael Mummer, that he's not interested in Yiddishkeit. The Kachazile, we saw the Ka'achel Nevelis Atrefus, that he eats Nevelis Atrefus. And the din is, we'll have in the Gemara that Mayridin V'lei Mailin, a Yisrael Mummer, somebody deliberately goes out, does Avedis, you throw them into the pit, you definitely don't save them. So why in the world should we save him? From death, even from death. Amaluhu, the lost objects we will give back to them because theirs. But in this case, why are you saving them? Amalu, he said, just because he ate treif, there's 2 kinds of mummers. There's a mummer lahachis and a mummer l'ti'avin. A mummer lahachis is spite. A mummer l'ti'avin is somebody just, he loves treif. He's weak, not because of spite or anything else. He just, cares for himself. That kind of mummer, we still can go ahead, we should save. What do you mean? The Gemara says, what is the acid test to know whether somebody's Yisrael Mummer or Yisrael L'Ti'avin? You know how you can tell? You have kosher and treif right in front of you. He leaves behind the heter and he eats the iser. And so he had a choice. He could have eaten heter. He eats iser. That means despite. The Mefarshim want to say actually that what do you call it? That he has to actually say, I know there's head here, but I don't care. I want treif. But if he's nonchalant, he doesn't care one way or another because he's used to eating treif, then it's not considered mumma lahachis. And others, of course, say that a tinnik shenishba doesn't know any better. This is not a test at all. Amalei, he turned to them, he said, Zil, he told the guy who sold himself to cannibal, Zil, go, like, they don't allow me to rescue you. Or they told me there's no mitzvah anymore in rescuing you. So Gemara tells a story. Reish Lakish. According to Taisus, this story happened before he became the famous Reish Lakish, when he was a bandit or he's a clown or an acrobat. Others say that this happened after he became the famous Reish Lakish, and he did this in order to save Yidden because these cannibals were threatening lots of Yidden. So Reish Lakish, Zavin Nafshe, he sold himself leludoi to a group of people who were cannibals. Shokol Bahadi, and took with him a sack, and inside there he had a wheel made out of fabric, but in the middle of the wheel made out of fabric, he had a rock, or he had something made out of lead, something really heavy. But when they saw it looked like just a bag. Omar, he said, Gimidi, I know, the Yom Basa, the last day of a person's life before the cannibals set on him, called the boy Benayu of the lady, they give him the last request. And whatever it is, they'll grant him. And why will whatever it is? In order to get forgiveness for spilling somebody's blood. The other Basa came the last day. Omar, he said to him, what's your last request? Omar, he said, I'll tell you my request is as strange as it is. I want to tie you guys up. But I'll sit you down. The whole chad menayich, and every one of you, I want to take my sack over here, which is just material, and I want to give you one full whack and a half a whack. They thought it was very strange, but that's their custom. The tradition is you got to grant the last request. Kamatinu, he tied them all up. And he sat each one of them down and tied them all up. He gave them one whack with the sack, but there's a heavy rock inside in that thing there, so he split their head. Nofik nishmasei, they were dying one after another. And one of them, as he was dying, he gritted his teeth. You're laughing at me, you're mocking me. Akati poshlar gabi palga the chais. I still owe you another half a whack. Katlinu kulu. He killed them all. He killed all of these cannibals. Why Tesis learned that he had to do this before he became the famous Lakish? Because Tesis is so demeaning, he probably wouldn't have done it afterwards. But really, he got rid of all the cannibals. So here you see in Eretz Yisrael, there were cannibals. Historically, we're not aware of that, but the Gemara clearly says that there were cannibals in Eretz Yisrael.
Can I just point out Stanzas translate Ludoi as gladiators, which makes
what is the art scroll? Where's an art scroll there?
I don't have art scroll.
Okay, but where's an art scroll? Look into if you don't have an art scroll, look in the bottom Rashi on Mem Vav on the base.
Okay. Yeah, he says Uma Shoichlim B'nei Adam.
What is
Cannibals.
that?
Cannibals, Nachon.
Okay. Yeah, where does Ashko get those gladiators?
Not
sorry,
art
where
scroll.
does
Steinsaltz, well, he
Steinsaltz.
caters it back to the Latin. He says, Niriki Gavonehi Ludari Hagil Gladiatorim, Alochim Karkasim, who fight in the circus. Okay, obviously.
Is he quoting somebody?
No, it's just made to a footnote. Brian, do you have it as well?
Yeah, exactly the same thing. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, but anyway, but the Pashtup shot in the Gemara, like Rashi says clearly, was cannibals. Not only that, I told you the Shashal Kabbalah says that these cannibals, he had a problem with, I guess, cannibals and Yisrael. He said that they were like doctors, they would dissect people for medical purposes. And there's a whole Chasam Sefer in the Chuvas in Yerdea. There's a question asked if a person is permitted to give his body to the medical profession to cut him up and to learn some science and, posthumously to see whether, different kinds of medicines, if you're allowed to, came out very strongly against it.
Yeah, apparently he writes that the biology of a Yid is different to that of a Goy.
Who writes?
Tshuva, the Chasam Sofer.
Yeah, but the point of that tshuva is it's not the koach nefesh unless the other person is right there, and it's sort of immediate, not stam the welterein, to work on things to come up with new truths, new medicines. That's the point that Rosh Hashanah says. Can't remember which tshuva it is, but it's in the air there. Yeah. Anyway, what happened was he killed them all out. Nothing went out. He went Yosef Ka'achlu V'Shasi. Later on, this is like towards the end of his life. The Shlakish died very poor. Whatever he earned, he ate on that very day. His daughter said to him, no, whatever he earned a certain day, he spent it. He had no savings accounts, no superannuation, nothing, no pension. His daughter said to him, don't you need something to lean on? A bed, a mattress, something, a blanket? He had nothing. He was very poor. Imagine this is the Reish Lakish, the famous Reish Lakish, and yet he had nothing. He didn't even have didn't have linen, nothing. Crazy kari. He was obviously he was a heavy person. He said, my stomach is my mattress, is what I sleep on. When he passed away, Shabbat, all he left behind was kavod the he was about to pass away. All he left behind was some saffron or whatever, a kav of it. Kora nafshe, he said about himself, he lamented, he left behind for everybody else their strength, and he passed away with nothing.
So how does he have such a big crazy, such a big belly if he's a man?
I don't know. He got money, and all the money he had, he spent on food and drink. That's what it says here. He said that all the money he had, he spent on food and drink. That's all. As Rashi says, I'll read your Rashi. Kol Yamav, his whole life. Kol Masha Hoya Mistaker, whatever he earned, Loy Hoya Mitzamtim, he didn't save it all, Lahatsni Liyamach for another day. And what did he do with it? He ate and drank. Okay, we'll stop here for a pause for 30 seconds. And then we'll do the next block. Whoever wants to stay can stay. Whoever wants to leave.
Thank you very much. I get